On Tech News today, Apple is planning to make TV shows and movies. They're also expected to roll out a gaming Siri-centric Apple TV next week. Oh, and Google invented a new font. It's all coming up next on Tech News today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, September 1st, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by Intel. Small business owners can't afford to choose between A or B. If both help your business, you want A and B. With Intel-powered 2-in-1s, you get performance and mobility, power and freedom. That's the power of and. Experience it at smallbusiness.intel.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgan. Our co-anchor today is After Nine's content czar, Joe Panettieri. Hey, Joe. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Mike. A little bit of audio and video issues on my end here, but I hope we make it through. Other than that, I'm doing great.
And I'm having email issues. I was whining and complaining before the show about how I haven't received an email message since about 8 minutes after 7 a.m. Pacific. That's about 3 hours ago. And it's really kind of a bummer because, you know, there's no, unlike the internship movie, there is no tech support for Gmail, at least for the free version. And there's really nothing to do. So if you're watching this and I invited you to be on the show and you sent me an email saying, yeah, I'd love to be on the show, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll get it eventually. So the big thing today that, well, one of the many big things that's happening today is that Google rolled out a new look. So if you go to google.com, you'll see their new logo. And their new logo is actually a font that they invented called Product Sans. And it's quite roundy and lovely. They also rolled out some other elements, like they have new bouncing dots for, quote, transitional moments. In other words, when you're waiting for something to refresh. They also have a G, a multicolored G that they're going to use when there isn't enough space to do the whole Google logo. Yeah, so it's all very pretty, and I think it's also deliberately designed to be very friendly looking because, of course, Google is freaking out regulators in Europe. They're doing lots of stuff that some people think is an invasion of privacy. And by having a very warm and fuzzy looking logo, and one also to go with their new, what do they call it? Reorg, I guess. Is it a reorg when you break up into multiple companies? Greg, what do you think? We'll leave it up to you. All right, that takes too long. We'll go with yes, it's a reorganization. Yeah, so under Alphabet, Google is one of those companies, and this is the new logo, of course, for the new Google that's separate from the rest of Alphabet. So anyway, it's all very nice looking, and I think it's pretty great. Well, let's jump right into the news. Apple is getting into the business of creating TV shows or movies or both. The news is an exclusive by Variety Digital Editor-in-Chief Andrew Wallenstein. Andrew joins us now to talk about it. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike.
Now, congratulations on the scoop. It's huge. I know that you were scheduled to talk to Megan yesterday and this on Tech News Tonight, and this news broke, and you went off to publish it and stuff like that. So we're so glad to get you on Tech News today to talk about this. This is a huge, huge scoop. Now, what else are your sources telling you about Apple's plans for original programming?
I think the key word here is overtures. Overtures are being made by people at Apple towards some pretty high-level individuals in Hollywood that they're sources, so I can't name them. But it seems like Apple is very definitively, in a way that they've never really before, are kicking the tires on figuring out how to enter the original content business. In one scenario, we heard from an executive who said that they had sketched out a plan where it seemed pretty clear that they were going to target Netflix and do some kind of mix of original TV and film that would be streamed, perhaps in a subscription mode. Others have described this as more of a flirtation. So clearly there's an increased level of activity from Apple. How this materializes is going to be fascinating.
Hey, Andrew, any hints yet in terms of how serious Apple is about this? Are they just floating ideas, or are they actually walking around with contracts trying to get people signed?
I wouldn't go so far as to say contracts. What I would go so far as to say, we heard that they are in the process of locking in a headhunter that will start doing an official search to draft executives from Hollywood. And we heard from one executive who said that Apple expects to be in operation on original programming next year. So I'm not going to come out here and say that Apple's hanging out a shingle next week, but in all the time I've been reporting on Apple, have never seen anywhere near this level of activity in terms of mobilizing. However, I do want to be clear. Apple is a company that has a habit of looking at things for quite some time and not necessarily making a move in the end. So just as we're seeing that Apple is kind of stalled with regards to licensing channels for Apple TV, who's to say that the same potentially dead end doesn't occur here as well?
Is there any point to doing this other than to have exclusive content that you can only get with an Apple TV? Are there other business reasons to create original programming?
Well, I think there's a very broad reason, and it's the same reason that, say, Amazon or even a Facebook could be exploring these kind of options in some ways, which is at the end of the day, you want to get as many users around the globe spending as much time on your platform as possible. And one key way to do that is to have exclusive content that keeps eyeballs in place for extended periods of time. Specifically to Apple TV, and really here's only speculation, well, think about what I just said. They're having a hell of a time getting existing networks to license their channels for usage on Apple TV. So perhaps, and again, speculation, the best way to make up for that difficulty is to start just producing their own content. And that could either supplement what few channels they're able to land or some other configuration.
Hey, Andrew, is Apple obsessed with any potential competitors here? I mean, I know you mentioned Netflix at the top of the interview, but do they have a short list of companies they're targeting to quote-unquote take out here, or is this more about Apple trying to build something for itself rather than obsessing about competition?
I'm going to go with the latter. I don't think this is really all about Netflix, though you could argue that Netflix essentially succeeded where Apple kind of left the door open by not going with the kind of subscription rental, monthly a la carte model that really proved much more successful. That said, it goes back to what I was just saying about Amazon and Facebook. I think they're just going after eyeballs and trying to get people on their platforms, whether it's Apple TV, maybe even Apple Music. That could be another area where original programming becomes a very organic extension. They just want eyeballs on Apple.
All right. Well, Andrew Wallenstein, fantastic scoop. We'll see how it goes. And I think you would probably agree with me if I were to say that we're not going to hear about this at their event next week. We're not going to hear about anything about this. We'll be lucky to hear about it the year after that. But anyway, amazing scoop. Andrew Wallenstein is at Variety.com. That's a Variety website, of course. And on Twitter at @Wallenstein. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Anytime, Mike.
Well, we got some more news for you coming right up, but let's talk about food. One of my favorite topics, probably my second favorite topic after tech. Blue Apron is one of our sponsors today. And Blue Apron has an amazing model. It's so appealing to use. When I first heard about Blue Apron, I have to be honest, I thought, wow, you have to cook it yourself? Like, what's the benefit? And I'll tell you what the benefit is. They send you this box, right? You get this big box. It's refrigerated. And in there is exactly the ingredients you need. So when you're done making these meals, you don't have anything left over. You use literally everything that comes in the box. So there's no waste. There's no going to the grocery store. There's no going from store to store to find exotic ingredients. They'll send you exactly what you need. And it's always seasonal, fresh ingredients. So good. But what's great about it is that I have discovered in my own household and in most households that I've seen, the task of cooking is not evenly distributed. Somebody in the house does most of it. And in our house, that person is my wife. So when Blue Apron comes along, it enables me to do all the cooking for those meals. I can do it easily because of their step-by-step instructions. They give you this big, bright, beautiful card that takes you through and holds your hand through every step. And then you end up with this amazing-looking meal, amazing tasting meal, and my wife gets a break. And it's also great if you have kids who are maybe teenagers or something, let them cook you dinner for a change. And they'll learn how to cook, and you'll get an incredible, incredible meal. And really, I can go on and on about the benefits. That 500 to 700 calories per meal, only $10 or so per person per meal. Way faster than going to a restaurant, and super easy. It's almost as easy as going to a restaurant because they make it so simple with the step-by-step instructions. But the truth is that the best thing about Blue Apron is the taste of the food. It is just really, really tasty food. So check it out, and you can try it for free. Blue Apron is a better way to cook, and you can check out this week's menu and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's right, 2 meals free just for going to blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Tech News Today. In related news, a new report on 9 to 5 Mac says Apple's announcement next Wednesday, which of course is September 9th, will feature an all-new Apple TV. The focus of this new version, according to the story, will be gaming and a new Siri-focused remote control with an integrated touchpad. Both the Apple TV remote and new Bluetooth-connected game controllers will be able to control games on screen. That's right, the remote will be usable with games. The remote will have the same motion sensors found in the iPhone, but it won't be usable as a Wii-like controller. The new Apple TV will run on iOS 9 and feature an all-new on-screen user interface. And again, that's an exclusive on 9 to 5 Mac. Joe Panettieri, I think we're going to see what Steve Jobs was referring to when he said that they finally solved the whole TV problem from a user interface perspective. Whatever it is they're going to hatch or announce next week, I think it's going to be some combination of moving the remote, touching the touchscreen, whatever it is. I think we're going to see it.
Well, I certainly hope so. And even if it isn't that big vision that Steve Jobs was talking about, in my own living room, I've got an aging Apple TV with dust on it. I want to love the device, but I simply can't because I don't get the user experience I'm used to from Apple. So if they've got something revolutionary up their sleeves, I'm inclined to go out and do an upgrade. I'm anxious to see what they're up to here.
Yeah, the thing that I'm a little worried about, of course, is that I have a tendency to think, given the history of Apple, that Apple, without Steve Jobs, always gravitated toward conventionality, toward ordinary thinking about products. So you saw that when he was fired or when he left in the 90s, they immediately became just like every other company in many, many ways. And then when he came back, it became the Apple that we know today, the post-iPod Apple, the post-iTunes Apple, and eventually the iPhone and iPad Apple, the one with extreme minimalism as expressed through their remote. Right now they have the most minimal remote out there. It's a little circle. It's a little tiny thing, minuscule, really easy to lose between the cushions. And, you know, a couple of buttons and that's it. Now they're talking about a remote with sensors in it and a touch screen and all kinds of other stuff. And it doesn't sound, it sounds, I fear always that they're going to gravitate toward, you know, in the direction of a Samsung type of remote, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed
and a little bit of the do everything. You know, you worry about the whole do everything approach, and you also worry because Apple is so great historically at the simplicity. And if they're trying to quote unquote do everything in the living room, that would make me worry without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Wikipedia volunteer editors have blocked 381 accounts for creating hundreds of fake pages or adding misleading information. Most of the accounts made the changes for self-serving promotion of a product, service, or person. They were established by people who are paid to use Wikipedia for promotional purposes, according to a Wikimedia post. Joe Panettieri, I bet you they didn't get all of them. I bet you there's a huge number of more subtly and more expertly done changes that they would just there's no way they can weed them all out.
Yeah, I agree with you, but if you look at the overall size of Wikipedia at this point, I mean, how many millions of pages are there? And I do think there is a pretty good hit rate in terms of accuracy out on Wikipedia. Plus, when they do find the fake stuff, they're able to weed it out immediately rather than waiting for next year's edition of the encyclopedia. So, you know what? It's still a go-to site for me, but I hear what you're saying. There's got to be so much information that hasn't been found yet that is just downright wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of things that are downright wrong, in an LA Times exclusive, they are saying that they have an explanation for all the state-sponsored hacks we've told you about in the last year, including hacks of airlines, hacks of medical insurance companies, hacks of government personnel records, and others. China and Russia, and possibly other foreign governments, are hoarding and processing such databases in order to identify U.S. intelligence officers and agents. They're doing it, according to the story, by using big data analysis and database cross-referencing to tease out clues in the data, and also to help them target agents with medical or financial problems so they can be turned. Essentially, they can simply find out who has a security clearance using the company, the database that they hacked that actually processes those clearances. Then they search those same people on other databases, medical and so on, to find out who's vulnerable in some way. For example, somebody with medical problems, or somebody with financial problems, somebody having an affair. They're also, apparently, according to the article, searching Ashley Madison. And then when they identify those people, they can blackmail them into spying for China or Russia. Joe, how depressing is this?
It's really depressing, and it comes back to a topic you and I have spoken about quite a bit, and it's the plummeting cost of big data processing power.
Yeah.
With the cloud out there, with the open source tools, with the number of bits and bytes you can crunch these days, if you can get a hold of the data, you can gain insights of the data. The real challenge is just getting a hold of the data. Once you have it, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do with it.
Exactly. And it also points to the fact that piecing things together, which China, by the way, is really good at. They've long had this 1,000 grains of rice approach to spying, even before the digital era, where they just get little chunks of information from thousands of different people or sources. And so, this is another example of that. But you figure, the intelligence agencies in the U.S. are very carefully guarding what they consider intelligence-related information, right? But they wouldn't necessarily consider United Airlines to be an intelligence asset of some kind to a foreign power. And those are the kinds of databases that are giving them information that find out, oh, this person went to Pakistan 12 times in a month. What does that mean?
Right.
They put all this stuff together. And of course, I guess in hindsight, it seems a little obvious that they would want to do this, and that that this would be a reasonable explanation for a state-sponsored hack of a medical insurance company. It's a perfectly reasonable thing for them to do, in fact. All right, well, in a related story that is yet another exclusive, this one from Reuters, the U.S. government is weighing sanctions against Chinese and Russian companies and individuals involved in the hacking of American businesses. And this is part of the new cyber strategy rolled out by the head, the defense chief, U.S. defense chief, and is basically they're using a Cold War strategy of retaliation. So they're basically saying, if you hack not only the U.S. government or military, but if you hack U.S.-based businesses, we're going to retaliate. It's going to be painful for you. And that was a promise made earlier in the year. It was announced at Stanford University a couple months ago, 3 months ago, something like that. And now it looks like they're seriously considering actually doing something like that.
Yeah. You wonder if this country versus country approach is going to escalate into more of a world war approach. And what I mean by that is which countries are going to align with the U.S. and which countries are going to align with China and Russia. And what does that mean in terms of this potential all-out strike and then strike back approach to both sides?
Yeah, exactly. It's a new world, and we'll see where it goes. I guess ultimately one of the greatest assets you can have in government or in espionage or whatever is some great hackers. So if you're a hacker, you're not going to be having much trouble looking for work, I'm guessing. All right, well, Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer said yesterday that she's pregnant with twin girls who are expected in December. So she is reproducing. Very awesome. All right, in product update news, LinkedIn is launching a new version of its messaging tool designed to cut clutter. While the old version looked like email, the new LinkedIn looks like Apple's iMessage or Facebook's WhatsApp. The app is free to LinkedIn users. And Joe Panettieri, I think this is the fatal flaw of this app. It's basically for LinkedIn members to talk to other LinkedIn members. And, of course, if you have the paid version, you can talk, and it has some separate branding, you can talk to people who are outside the LinkedIn membership universe. But I think that any sort of messaging app that requires membership in the other, I guess that's true of Facebook as well, but still, I think they'd have a much better time of it if they open it up for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. It almost feels like some of the social media companies here are trying to bring us back to the days of AOL, where we're all hanging out in the same chat group, et cetera, within the closed AOL system rather than in the open internet, which is what people ultimately prefer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Twitter is experimenting with new photo and video editing tools that are for the exclusive use of celebrities and other VIPs, while the rest of us don't get to use them. TechCrunch was first to notice that VMA-related tweets from Taylor Swift, Pharrell Williams, and others had VMA-related stickers, the same kind of stickers. Other VMA tweets had other junk on the pictures. Tennis players in the U.S. Open tournament are also getting special access to these tools. And this is part of a trend that I noticed in a column recently, Joe, where Facebook, Apple, and Twitter and other companies are profiting from the creation of a two-tier system where you have elites either in the media or elite in some other way, and the riffraff, the rest of us, who don't get access to many of these tools. In some cases, like in Facebook's case, with their live streaming service, there's an expectation that they'll start with hand-picked people, then they'll roll it out to verified members, and ultimately to everybody. If that's the case, that's fair enough. But in other cases, like Apple's Connect and possibly even this feature, just rolling it, having separate tools, separate rules, separate capabilities for elites that are not extended to other people is a kind of a bummer and kind of a reversal of what used to be so great about the internet.
Yeah, I think it's more than a bummer. I almost wonder if there are some legal issues percolating longer term in terms of the haves versus the have-nots and how this is all going to play out. We all complain about the media being dominated by celebrity stories, and now we're getting more of it in next-generation social media, and that's of concern to me.
Yeah, and there's so much movement in the world of messaging. 9to5Mac is now reporting that Instagram has enhanced its digital messaging feature with chat threads, emoji, and all kinds of other stuff. So everything that's anywhere near chat is getting all the same kind of stuff. And, of course, everything's moving to chat and kind of away from social a little bit. So that makes a lot of sense. Well, we got some more news for you coming right up. But let's talk about power for your small business. We're talking about Intel. For small business owners, there's absolutely no room for compromise. You can't afford to throw away money. You can't afford to make a mistake when you buy, hardware for your employees and for yourself. And so that's why Intel's Intel-powered 2-in-1s are such a great option. Sometimes you need a tablet, right? And sometimes you need a laptop. And if you buy both a tablet and a laptop, you're going to spend a lot of money that you don't have to spend. With Intel-powered 2-in-1s, you get performance and freedom. You get everything. You don't have to choose. It can be whatever device you want. Some of these are and you can have, there are multiple options. Some of them, you can sort of twist the lid of a laptop and it folds around on the back and becomes an integrated tablet. I love those because when you're using it in tablet mode, the keyboard is always right there. You don't have to carry a separate thing. And others, you can actually detach the screen, and that screen then is a standalone tablet. Very powerful way to go. And it's not just the power and flexibility. It's not just the power of a laptop with the flexibility of also having a tablet. It's also great battery life, great performance, great graphics performance, great wireless performance. And, of course, it's all Intel inside, so it's going to be really, really powerful, fast, and compatible with everything. So you got to experience the power of AND, especially if you have a small business, but even if you don't, experience the power of AND. Visit smallbusiness.intel.com and find out how Intel-powered 2-in-1s can improve your small business. That's smallbusiness.intel.com, and we thank Intel for their support of Tech News Today. Well, in courtroom drama news, a U.S. law firm called Hausfeld & Company is partnering with an antitrust consulting company named Avisa Partners to make a ton of money from EU antitrust action against Google. A lawyer for the firm said that any person or entity that engaged in e-commerce in the EU may have a civil claim against Google. So they said they've set an initiative. They created an initiative with its own website and everything. It's called GRIP, which stands for Google Redress and Integrity Platform. I don't know what the word integrity is in there for, but you know, this is the digital antitrust version of ambulance chasers. Joe, what do you think about this? And do you think they're going to get a lot of customers?
Mike, you stole my line. I was going to say the exact same thing. It not only ambulance chasing, but what if you could chase every ambulance over a high-speed network simultaneously?
Automatically.
That's what's going on here.
Yeah,
that's what's going on here. And it's, you know, it's downright depressing. I've had times in my life when I needed a lawyer, and I was really happy to have good representation. Then you see things like this, and you just shake your head.
Yeah, exactly. I for one, am going to move to Europe just so I can sue Google. I'm outraged, and I want the 72 cents that I'll get after 10 years of litigation from this. So that's just me. Our TNT fan of the day is Dan Ferreira in Tokyo, Japan, who posted this picture on Twitter. He's watching Tech News Today while making espresso in his Tokyo kitchen. How cool is that? You know, that is a huge kitchen by Tokyo standards. It's such a populated city, and everything's vertical, and they have to have very small kitchens, usually. Not this guy. Shows how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Joe Panettieri, thank you so much for hanging in there and getting us through our Skype troubles today. Great stuff as always, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you so much for having me, and have a good week.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on your favorite podcast app, or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. And if you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, come in and watch us as part of our studio audience, like birthday boy Milton over here. Happy birthday to you, Milton. You can send email to tickets@twit.tv before you come in. And you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TechNewsTodayTV. You can follow me at Elgan.com. And don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that is the Tech News Today. This show was produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.